Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of Highlander History, where I'm honored and have a real pleasure of introducing two coaching titans from Somerville High School, from our track and field programs, Dave Dickerson and Charlie O'Rourke. Gentlemen, thank you so much for spending a little time today with us and being here.
Thanks for having us.
Same here.
Gentlemen, I'm going to ask you the same questions, and I'll just go from one to the other. My first question, and I'll start with Coach Dickerson. Can you tell us about when you first started coaching at Somerville High School and kind of what that process was like, the hiring process, and kind of when you first started your first season? I'd love to hear kind of how that all played out.
Back in the late 70s, Charlie and I were weekend road race warriors. We were young teachers. We were friends in the running boom, and he generously asked me. I can't remember the exact year. Charlie, you might remember. I don't know if it was 79 or 80. Asked me if I wanted to help assist with the boys and girls indoor track team. He had coached. He coached both of those teams for a long time, and I couldn't do it at the time. But then I was lucky for me. A few years later, in 1983. I don't know if you were there, Stan, at that time. You were a little later than that, probably, right?
I graduated in '87, so it was close.
Okay. He had asked me in '83 to do it. Like I said, lucky for me, and I've been coaching ever since. First as his assistant, and then I really got the bug and started. I coached up at Saugus High School for a couple of years in cross country for girls. I helped a little bit outdoor for 88, 89 with Bob Nason when he was coaching the boys outdoor team. And then he decided to retire after about 10 years. And I applied for the job and, filled out a resume, which I didn't have to do for Charlie the first time. Jerry Knight was the new AD at the time, legendary Jerry Knight. He took the application, called me in and said, let's do an interview with the full school committee, which was interested. I didn't expect that. So I went down to the Cummings school where they had the interview process, and I went through it, came out. Jerry walked me out, and he said, look, if they decide to interview anybody else, that may be a problem for you. And I said, well, why is that? And he said, there's no other candidate. Nobody else is interviewing. I got the call. I got the job the next day, and I've been doing the boys outdoor since that time.
Coach O'Rourke, I'd love to hear your answer.
Well, I first was hired in '75 as a teacher at the Weston, and they had an opening. They only had the first girls track program team was in spring of '75. Steve Hines was the coach. When I got in September of '75 the teaching job, I also got the spring job. He left, so I got the spring coaching job. And there was only one way to get a program going, is not just one sport. We needed cross country, we needed indoor, and we needed outdoor. So we started that unofficially, cross country in '75. Then we started an indoor program in the winter of '75, '76. And then '76 was the outdoor. But we ran in the corridors. The girls weren't allowed to go anywhere with the boys. We tried to go and have the girls run in the JVs, meets and stuff like that. They weren't allowed on the buses, yada, yada, yada. So there's a lot of stuff like there. But I also had to go through the school committee to get appointed with that. But I took it upon myself just to start going with cross country and indoor, because it's the only way to do it. You can't just have one season and expect track to do well. But and then we also in '82 we sued the GBL. It's one of my favorite moments to force them to have a girls' league. And at the time, my assistant coach Betsy Harshbarger, Scott Harshbarger, was very influential in politics. So we went through all that, and I think maybe '82, '83 might have been the first year that the GBL had girls. And the good thing about being old and cranky is you can say things like this, and I don't care anymore. But I think all the GBL ADs at the time said, we were going to do this anyways. we were going to have a league, and I said, no, you weren't. The Attorney General's office forced them to do it. So we got that, and then we moved on, and we've had track and field for the girls ever since, like 82, 83 officially. You interviewed, I think, Wendy Gamache,
Yes.
which was one of the premier pioneers in girls track at the high school, and her mother was a driving force behind forcing the school and the league to girls need a real league and all that. So I started in 75 and I coached up until 2017 at the high school. So it was a little different start than Dave, but I think we did a good job.
Yeah, you were a pioneer.
It's the truth. And that's the way I consider both of you, real pioneers for our program. So tell me, and I understand that all coaching positions are all part-time. We all know that. But from your perspective, especially where you came from and what you were starting, I'll start with Coach O'Rourke this time. Even though it was part-time, did it really feel like a full-time job?
You know what? It was. I taught at the high school. First I taught the West End, that closed. Then I was at the Annex, that closed. And then I was at the high school. That hasn't closed yet, but might be. It really is. If you love the sport, and if you love doing what you're doing, sports becomes, the thing. You were after school, you did it on weekends. Dave and we took the kids running on Saturdays or every meet we could possibly go to, maybe Sundays, taking them out. It is. If it's a love, something you really care for, you just can't, punch out at the end of the day and just continue. Any good coach is working 24/7. You take the work stuff home, and all that stuff. So Dave is the same way.
It's interesting. Before I get to Coach Dickerson's answer on the same question, I did interview Luis Moreira, and he had said that one of the greatest memories he had beyond some of the highlights of his athletic career was just a time when he was hanging out with his track coaches, going to McDonald's, or just like he loved those moments of just chatting and bending your ear. So it was pretty awesome to hear a story like that. Coach Dickerson, same question. I know it was a part-time position, but and I know you probably still feel the same way. It's almost like a full-time job. Am I right?
Oh yeah. Following up what Charlie said, we taught together. I can't remember exactly what year that was, but at the Annex, it was the Southern Junior High School first, and then Charlie came down from the Western, and so we were even closer then. That was probably around the early 80s. But we used to joke that our day job of teaching was interfering with our ability to coach. Because like he said, it gets pretty intense. It's interesting, but it's intense. There's so many aspects to coaching. We go to clinics every year. Charlie and I. Charlie's on the Mass State Track Coaches Association board, executive board. Just knowing the sport and the events takes a lot of study. And then setting up the practices with the limited time that you have with the kids to try to maximize what you get out of that. I remember fond memories of the early days before the indoor track opened up. We used to call it the new track in 1985. We used to take the kids down to Tufts once a week. Charlie had worked something out with Tufts, not the athletic director, but somebody down there that we could use the track for, 45 minutes or an hour once a week.
Half an hour.
Yeah.
We had it from 3:15 to 3:45. And you know what? The kids, and Dave had a van, and I can't tell you how many kids he would fit in the van, and the rest of them would run there and run back. And it was the old track.
How many we could fit in there because it was against the law.
Yeah. So,
and also you develop some really, like you said, really close relationships with the kids when you have them for 4 years and work with them, and you see how much they grow, from freshmen to seniors. It's great.
It's got to be. So I can only imagine how many amazing memories you both have throughout your Somerville High School careers, whether it be a certain meet or a certain athlete. But is there any way in this interview that something, maybe one or two memories that kind of stand out to you as really significant moments for your program? I'll start with Coach Dickerson first.
Oh, all right. Yeah, there's a ton of memorable moments you can imagine with all these years. And Um, there's emotional times, individual team triumphs, but following like a number of close calls in the early 90s where the team just kept getting a little bit better, but didn't quite get there. In 1996, when both Charlie and I were coaching indoor, I had already been in the outdoor, coaching the boys outdoor, and I was still assisting Charlie indoor. The girls and the boys together won all their meets that year and went 32-0. Won all 4 GBL championships. We used to call it the golden age. It was a cool time, but that was kind of amazing. But you had told us you were going to ask us this question. So one of the things that I was thinking about, though, that was really memorable was our indoor team in 2014 was kind of in a rebuilding year. Charlie used to always call that a reloading year. But the kids had worked hard, but it was obvious that our opponent, Malden, our new rival, the Malden Golden Tornadoes, that they had the favorite team to win the GBL championship. And we were going up against them with no losses. They had no losses, so we had a shot to win the GBL championship. And the score, amazingly, came down to 41-40 with the relay to go. And for the first 3 legs, the kids were right there. It was back and forth all the way. It was a real tug of war. And the last leg for Malden was a kid who eventually won an MIA championship for 400 meters. So he was really, really good. He took off and took the lead for about 10 yards. And for a lap and a half, he kept that lead. And then all of a sudden, our anchor runner, Admark Oza, closed and closed and closed, and he caught the kid with about 40 yards to go. The whole place was going crazy. The gym was going nuts. The Malden team was crazy. Our kids were yelling out. I had told our kids before the finish that if we won the meet, don't run out on the track. You can get disqualified for that. Stay there. Well, Oddmark lunges for the finish line. Their kid just inches ahead of him, beats him to the finish line. The Malden team crashes all over him, runs over Oddmark. Some of our kids go up and try to help him up because they're all emotional that they lost. I yelled at the kids to get down the other end of the track because I didn't want anything else to go on because they were upset. I went to check with the officials to make sure that I saw what was right, that we didn't win. And they told me we didn't. So I had the captains get all the kids down there. I went down the other end of the track. Some of the kids were in tears. Some of the kids were running around muttering to themselves, angry thoughts. And I yelled at them. I said, get over here and get over here now. And I had their attention. They all came over. And I said, I've been doing this for a long time. That's the best meet I've ever seen. And the kids went crazy. They were over the loss in 5 minutes, and they went home, and they were fine the next day.
Awesome. That's awesome. It really is. Coach O'Rourke, same question.
Yeah, well, Dave kind of stole that meet. The 96 indoor championship was at Cambridge. Again, the last meet of the season. Cambridge undefeated, Somerville undefeated. Cambridge is a historic track program. It was packed in the Cambridge facility. I remember Manny doing the high jump at the end, and it came down to the high jump before the relay. The fact that both teams were undefeated going in, and then Somerville won men and the boys and girls, that was outstanding. We had Princess Fenton. We had all those great athletes at the time. That certainly stands out as the best key moment, I think, and that I remember. That was awesome.
Yeah, I'm with you.
Amazing. And not to interject something, but Coach O'Rourke, I'm sure I never told you this, but I actually I remember at the time when I was at the Weston Junior High, you were in the classroom next door. I believe I had Mr. Spencer on the other side, and we had like that back and forth class. And I remember at the end of the year, they asked us who your favorite teacher was, and I said, I think it was Mr. O'Rourke, and they said, you didn't even have him. I said, I know, but he's the coolest guy. Yeah, I thought you were the coolest of all time. I really did, honestly. You always made us laugh. You came in that class every day, and you made us laugh every day.
That might have been, was that Mr. Adams?
I thought it was you.
Yeah, well, I know that. I missed the those old days. That was a different era in education, having fun, and this and that. But yeah, it was Western was it was a great place.
It was one of the most interesting stories, and I'll be quick. Was I remember there was and it's a different time, obviously, right? But there was two boys who were fighting outside of the classroom. Like after the class, they were headlock or whatever. And I remember one of the teachers said, "Are you gonna stop that?" And the teacher said, "No, let them play it out. Let's see how it play. See how they'll be able to hash it out themselves when it's all said and done." I can't imagine saying that today. It's pretty amazing. It really is.
No.
But that's how we got so
All
many
right.
kids to run track. That's how we got so many kids to run. Charlie was funny. He was recruiting kids all the time.
So I'm sure I know the answer to this, and I'll start with Coach O'Rourke with this question. I'm guessing you both of you have stayed very connected to not only your student athletes that ran for you, but also past coaches who work with you. Tell me about that, and over the years, and how you've stayed connected with all those people.
Well, you know what, coaching girls is different than boys. There's a lot of kids that I still come in contact, like Princess. At the beginning, so part of this is being older too, but at the beginning of the pandemic, I got calls from Princess and a couple of the other kids. Hey, do you want me to go shopping for you? Need anything? Let me know, and stuff like that. Did you ever connect with Nicole Jannard Stanley to talk with her? She's an amazing story.
I know. I've reached out a few times, and we have yet to connect, but I will get her at some point. Absolutely.
She's someone that was a terror at the high school, and she turned out she's a police officer now. She graduated. She went to Northeastern, was captain 4 seasons. First then became a police officer for Northeastern, and then in Canton. She was national champion in the javelin, numerous times state. There's a kid there that who really grew up in her high school years. So she stays in contact. There's a whole bunch of them that get back occasionally, send me a Christmas card. Jennifer Braga, that's my wife's favorite card. She has 4 kids, and we've watched them grow up in the cards and stuff like that. But yeah, you know what? There is no better place I could have coached than Somerville. Kids don't understand what a cool place and a unique environment it is. Now, I've been away 4 or 5 years, so it's just, Somerville's just a great place. And as you know that, Stanley, you're home now. You are back you're back in the Ville. We're back in the Ville. So it's just a great place. Yeah, so we do stay in touch, some of the guys too, but Dave's coached more boys teams than I have. So,
well, we coach together, everything.
The truth. Coach Dickerson, same question. Like talk about the athletes you've stayed connected with, even your past coaches. I know you worked with Coach Stoffer for a long time, so tell me how you've stayed connected with everybody.
Yeah, well, I didn't know Coach Stoffer before Charlie introduced me to him. I hired him as my assistant outdoor on Charlie's advice because he had been coaching with the girls team. I saw that picture that when you did the interview with Wendy Gamache with Kyle with hair back in the day. He's been unbelievable. He's such a loyal guy and a longtime friend, and so we never stay out of touch. We're always there. I've also been fortunate. I think it's 16 years ago, Charlie Tisch came in and asked me if he could. I didn't know him out of the blue. If he could help out, and we started by just having him come and observe. And 16 years later, he's still helping out with us. But like Charlie just said, some of the kids are really good about staying in touch. Charlie knows him. DeMar Chapman, who's a character, moved down to Rhode Island after he graduated, got a job down there. But he just called me last week to check in and just say hello. He's not asking for anything. And let me know what he's doing. He's working up at Raytheon now. Ricardo Bonhomme, who works through the high school guidance office helping out kids, had stayed in touch with him. Bobby McCarthy, who, it's hard piecing these years together. I guess he's a sophomore over at Harvard right now. He checks in regularly. He's done like Charlie was saying. These guys call in and say anything we can do, especially with the pandemic and knowing we're a little elderly now. Travis Dolcine, who Charlie knows well, recently graduated from UMass Dartmouth. I went to see him. Philip Smagri, who's a track scholarship athlete over at Northeastern in his third year, and Jackson Anderson, who's he's taken a gap year at Williams, but he's a multi-event athlete at Williams College. And the three of them were competing in January, just before the pandemic stuff started. I went to see them last year, and they stay in touch all the time. And there's like Charlie said, there's so many of these coaches, former athletes, that have come back and helped us out. Charlie had Yolanda Ortiz as well, who came back for a long time, helped run our craft fair for years. Demetra Sorianis, who was a great cross-country athlete. She owns Daddy Jones down in Davis Square, and she's like an employment agency for us for track athletes down there. Hopefully that'll all pick up again soon. Her brother, Stavros Sorianos, he came to teach at Somerville High School for a couple of years before he went off to graduate school and got an MBA out at the University of Chicago. He's gone, but he coached for a few years. Paul McDonald, 99 graduate, another Harvard graduate, came back to coach for 3 seasons. He's now back in Winchester, and he said when his kids grow up a little bit more, he'll come back and help out again. And James Arredondo, he's helped out. He helped me out big time about 10 years ago when my father was ill before he passed away. He filled in, and it was great, a really great time to have somebody like that help out when I really needed it. There's so many people, and I'm probably missing names right now going off of that, but I'm so grateful to have these contacts. They're lifelong friendships.
It's the truth, Coach. It's the truth. I remember when I was, because you got me thinking about Coach Stauffer. My first month working here at Somerville, I remember I was sitting in my office and I got a knock on the door, and Coach Stauffer walked in and said, "Mr. Vieira, may I speak to you?" And I said, "Mr. Vieira, Coach Stauffer, when I was coming to high school, I was terrified of you. I was truly terrified of Coach Stauffer. He had the biggest hands I've ever seen in my life." And I remember he asked me one time when I was in high school, "Vieira, are you going to play football this year?" I said, I don't think so. And he said, "Why not?" So he was terrifying. He was so larger than life. And I thought it was so funny that he was calling me Mr. Vieira. It was just kind of funny. So I'm a big fan of Coach Stauffer, but I think it's safe to say
there are 2 other guys that I forgot. McConan Fenton, who's coaching Princess's brother. He's our football coach. And Marcelo Brosinaire, who's the media arts teacher at the high school. Absolutely. He's been really helpful as well.
Yeah, it's all great people. Gentlemen, my last question, and I'll start with Coach Dickerson on this one, is just you've seen and you've helped graduate so many student athletes, seniors over the years. Every year we have a whole new crop of people who are kind of graduating and moving on to the next chapter of their lives, their new journey, so to speak. Coach Dickerson, what advice would you offer student athletes who are kind of going on to the next chapter and looking to figure out their path?
Probably the advice that I give them every day in practice, when we tell them to take things one day at a time, try to, the way that they do with their studies and their practices and meets, if it's tough today, tomorrow's another day and it holds promise for you. Prepare for anything that is possible. Don't take anything for granted. And prepare for the things that you have control over. It'll eventually pay off. It would have been amazing if we were prepared for this pandemic, but do everything you can to be ready when opportunity comes your way. Another tip would be don't climb a ladder if somebody's not holding the bottom of that ladder for you. I fell off a ladder 3 weeks ago off my back roof.
That is solid advice, no question about it, right? For sure. Coach O'Rourke, same question.
First, appreciate that you're from Somerville, but secondly, you only, training and running and life is you can only take out what you put into it. If you're going to be a runner, you want to improve, you got to work hard. All right. So the harder you work, the more you put into it, the more you can draw out of it. So that's in sports, that's in life, that's in anything else. You work hard, you build up, and then you reap you sow the benefits afterwards. And again, just work hard and be appreciative, and not to be afraid of ask people for advice, help. A lot of times, I don't know what the atmosphere is now, but sometimes, if you get that good guidance counselor and stuff like that, lean on those people or lean on that teacher, whatever it is, for the advice. And don't be afraid of doing that.
Gentlemen, I can't thank you enough. I truly meant what I said on the onset. I'm honored to have spoken with both of you today. It's a privilege working with Coach Dickerson, and I told Nicole Veely, the past former athletic director, the other day, one of the things that I wish I was able to do is also beyond working with Coach Dickerson, but is working with Coach O'Rourke. I wish he was still here, Coach. I really do. I'm sorry I missed out on that time where I know you're on to different and great things as well. But it's one of the things that I wish I had the ability to do is work with you. But I miss you here, and I appreciate everything you've done for everybody in Somerville. And again, thank you both for spending a little time today and sharing your stories with the community here in Somerville.
Thank you, Stanley.
Thanks, Stan.
Okay, my pleasure.